Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to talk about the fact that Rogue Trader, as it turns out, seems to be its own separate skirmish game, and that would put it alongside Necromunda, and also alongside the presumably soon-to-be-released Kill Team. I mean, as it stands, Games Workshop is looking towards seemingly having 3 different skirmish games available at the same time, and you kind of have to wonder, are they not saturating their own market a little bit with this? Are they maybe producing, if it's possible, too many skirmish games? Now, before we get into this properly, earlier today I put a video up which was, I can't remember what I called it now, something along the lines of, and the next Primarch is, and it was obviously a joke. It was just a picture of that bloody dog model from the Rogue Trader trailer, which, look, it's a quality model. Captain Doggo is the best. These are true facts. I did actually have genuinely quite a few people seem to think that I had some sort of exclusive information straight from Games Workshop. I'm just a random idiot on YouTube. They are not going to give me any information like a day before Warhammer Fest. If they're going to like release something as big as the next Primarch, it's not going to be through me. I'd love it if it was. I would absolutely love it if it was, but it's not going to be through me a day before Warhammer Fest starts. That would be fucking mental for them to do. That would be mad. Anyway, oversaturation. Is Games Workshop actually doing it? Are they completely oversaturating their own market in terms of these skirmish games? It's kind of a tricky one because they're not all the same. And I think there's an extra element to this beyond kind of, are they just producing the same game over and over? Is there enough of a difference between these games to make them all worth playing? I think it's easy to underestimate the collector side of things for a start. So it's easy to look at Necromunda and Kill Team and now Rogue Trader and kind of go, well, they're all similar, they're all skirmish games, do we really need all of these? They all have, though, kind of unique selling points in a way. I would argue that the selling point for Necromunda is, well, it's the fact that it's Necromunda. I mean, it's kind of like, yes, it is a skirmish game, but it has its own line of models, and it is not the same as the overall 40k setting. Necromunda has a very different feel, it has a very different, I'd argue it has a different aesthetic to the rest of 40k. I mean, when you look at the Van Saar stuff especially, that is way outlandish. Like, for what 40k is, and for what humans are in Warhammer 40,000, Van Saar as a faction are, they stand alone in terms of the way they look. They are properly futuristic. They're just so different. And I think that's one of the big draws of Necromunda itself. It is not just standard 40k with some rules cut out, or standard 40k with some different rules to strip it down. It's very much its own setting within the setting. There is, of course, the fact as well that the individual model ranges actually seem to be spanning across. I've seen a couple of people who are doing interesting things with Imperial Guard using Necromunda gangs. I mean, for a start, I've seen someone doing some really nice conversions of the Escher stuff. So they have like female Imperial Guardsmen. In fact, I think someone's doing like an entire army of those. Kill Team is also a little bit different in that Kill Team, the way that it's been, like the way that Games Workshop have kind of laid it out, and the way that they seem to be doing that, is that you'll be able to use models from Warhammer 40,000. Kill Team, although it is its own game, is also something that is directly compatible with 40k as a whole. By the look of it, you should be able to take like standard infantry squads and stuff and drop them into Kill Team. That's certainly the way it's been laid out. The Kill Team trailer seemed to suggest that was what you'd be able to do. And so Kill Team and Necromunda, I would argue, don't really compete in the same way. Like, they don't compete in the way that people maybe think they do. Necromunda is very much its own standalone thing, where you happen to be able to use the models for other stuff if you really want to. Kill Team is not going to be that. It's going to be its own standalone product from 40k, but it is also a direct kind of, it complements 40k in that you'll be able to use your 40k models for it, something which you cannot do with Necromunda. Then we've got Rogue Trader. So Rogue Trader, again, seems to be its own separate thing. It's another skirmish game. But again, I would kind of argue that Rogue Trader... To me, Rogue Trader feels like it's going to be different to both Necromunda and to Kill Team, in that it seems definitely standalone. Now, don't get me wrong, the models that have been shown for Rogue Trader will probably and quite obviously have uses elsewhere. I've seen some very hopeful comments and posts, people saying things like, oh, well, I mean, this Rogue Trader stuff, this might be stuff that will also be available in a Imperial Agents Codex. That would be nice. I wouldn't put money on it if I were you. I wouldn't get your hopes up too much, but there are definitely things that can be done with those models that would apply to Warhammer 40,000 as a whole. The Chaos stuff especially, you could use those for... I mean, name it. There's plenty of applications for Chaos models because there are plenty of different facets of Chaos that you can play in Warhammer 40k. But I think until we see the rules, and until we find out whether it's going to be something that is expansion based or whether it's something that is its own thing by itself, it's kind of difficult to judge. Something that would be very interesting, which I doubt will happen unfortunately, but you never know, is the possibility that we do see some sort of codex release alongside Rogue Trader. Now, Rogue Trader seems to be coming in later in the year, so if I was to properly throw my brain out there a little bit and think to myself, what would be a really great thing to see? What would be a great thing to see that not necessarily true, probably unlikely to be true? Well, if Rogue Trader turned out to be similar to Forgebane in a way, where it is its own standalone game, it does have its own standalone rules, but the models that are contained within it are actually part of a wider force, that would actually be quite interesting. If that turned out to be the case, that there was like an Imperial Agents Codex and something that made use of those Chaos models, because I really do think that those Chaos models, for a start, are not just going to be there for that game. I really think that they're going to be there for something else. There's also a very valid point that someone made, I think it might have been on Reddit, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was something that I hadn't noticed myself that was interesting. The pictures that we got from the Rogue Trader video, that you can also see just as still images in my video, the models are on bases that suggest they are outdoors, like in a battlefield somewhere, whereas the setting, the scenery, suggests that they are quite possibly on the bridge or equivalent on a starship. So either that is an oversight by the team that painted those models, you know, they were based with the wrong materials, or alternatively they will have outside applications and they will be useful elsewhere as well. To be honest, the Rogue Trader stuff, the only thing that I could see them being widely used for would be either as alternative models for existing stuff to do with either Imperial Guard or Assassins or whatever, Inquisition stuff, or an actual Imperial Agents Codex comes out around the same time. The Chaos stuff, it's kind of tricky. I mean, in that video I said Nurgle, but looking at it, there seems to be some interesting stuff in there that maybe is not specifically Nurgle. There are mutations and things that are... I mean, they could apply to a couple of the Chaos Gods, and so maybe that expands what could be done with those models. I don't actually think that Games Workshop is at risk of treading on their own toes or at risk of saturating the market for skirmish games, because all of these skirmish games have something different about them, and all of them in some way are either completely applicable outside of that, you know, that particular game, or are self-contained. Like Necromunda is self-contained. It just so happens that you can use the models for other things. Kill Team is not self-contained because you will be able to take stuff out of 40k to put into Kill Team. I suspect that the biggest market for Kill Team will come from people who want to just play small skirmish games of 40k. You know, they've got their armies. What if you don't have time for a massive game? What if you want to play a smaller, more narrative game? There's Kill Team. There's the rule set for you. Take what you like from your main army, stick it in, off you go. Rogue Trader, whilst it is labelled as a skirmish game, could very well be something along the same lines as something like Forgebane, or, you know, it could be its own rule set, but with more with an idea of pushing those models out to wider use. To be honest, I just don't think it's that much of a problem, and I think whatever the kind of end result is, whether it's 3 skirmish games running at the same time, as long as they're all being supported and Games Workshop is kind of cognizant of the fact that they do have 3 similar products, as long as they've planned around that, I don't think it's that much of an issue. And there will be things that they have thought about, there will be things that they have planned, taking into account the fact that they have a similar product being repeated a couple of times, and it will all be applicable elsewhere. That's, I think, the biggest thing. I think that's one of the things that it kind of surprises me that Kill Team was not a thing. Kind of, I know we had Shadow War Armageddon. Kill Team is a bit different to all of these, and I think it's something that should have been in place properly a while ago. It should have been brought back a while ago. It should have been made properly official and stuff. It's not the same. It's not the same. Out of the 3, I think Rogue Trader and Necromunda will be the ones that are most kind of their own standalone products. And even then, they are not produced, I don't think, with the intention of being standalone products. I think that's the main thing to consider. All 3 of these skirmish games, whilst they are in existence, they are all skirmish games, and therefore they do technically intersect, they do technically compete against one another. That's not all they're there for. There is a huge side of 40k that's got fuck all to do with the actual game. There's a huge side of 40k that's got nothing to do with the specialist games. I mean, hell, I have a box of Vansar on the way. I don't play Necromunda. I don't even have the starter set. I don't have nothing to do with Necromunda. But those models I'm going to be using for 40k. It's all stuff that Games Workshop will have considered, and it's all designed to intersect in such a way that even people who don't play them will look at them and go, I could use that for something else. Much though there's been a kind of weird thing about whether you should kit bash or not, and Games Workshop themselves have been a little bit irregular as to whether they want you to be able to kit bash or not. It's still a huge part of the hobby, and there's also a huge collection side of the hobby as well. People who will just buy the models for having the models and don't intend to use them for anything. Don't underestimate all of that. Even when things compete, it's not necessarily that much of an issue, and it's not necessarily that much of saturation, because they're designed to compete and they're designed to spread further out than that. Question is, what do you think? Do you think they do compete? Do you think Games Workshop is spreading itself too thin? Do you think more specialist games is a bad idea? Or do you think they will just keep going on the basis that this stuff can all be used elsewhere? Be interested to hear what you think about that. Let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click videos, Patreon, subscribe, all that shit. Click it if you like. Don't click if you don't want to. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.